Helena's Choice, Chapter 1, Oxfordshire, England, June 30, 1837. Helena Catfield leaned out the window of the moving coach, delighting in the June breeze that brushed her face and teased her large hat. Above, the sky was a sea of blue, and in the hills, the cream-colored sheep grazed on pink heather. After being away for 3 years, she was content to be returning home to Catfield House. The carriage rattled across a stone bridge, waking the Picketts, an elderly couple who sat across from her. Mrs. Pickett pushed back the gray strands from her forehead and peered outside. "The clouds have cleared. Couldn't have picked a better day for traveling," she remarked. "I can see the spires from here," Mr. Pickett said. "Nothing like being in Oxford." "Do you have family in Oxford, miss?" Mrs. Pickett asked Helena. "I'm sorry, what was your name again?" "Miss Catfield. My father is Dr. William Catfield. Do you know him?" "Oh, yes, he treated my husband once, many years ago," Mrs. Pickett said, smiling. "Where did you say that you were traveling from, Miss Catfield?" "Paris. I completed my term at Madame Guillard's boarding school." "Ah, very nice. With your lovely features, you will probably have plenty of gentlemen suitors come calling." Helena flushed, remaining silent. One person whom she looked forward to seeing again was Mr. Murphy, a medical student of Papa's. She was 14 when he first visited her father to discuss his coursework one day. On returning from riding her horse, Helena had rushed into the house to greet her father. Next to him sat a young man with a boyish face. Papa scolded her lightly for her childish entrance and then made the introductions. Later, when Mr. Murphy visited her father, he would tease her about her tomboyish behavior, pulling on one of her braids. All these years, Helena nursed a secret infatuation for Mr. Murphy. She wanted him to see her dressed in her fashionable clothes. The coach entered the busy thoroughfare of Oxford, with its carriages, pedestrians, and wagons. The driver dropped them off at High Street, and Helena bid the Picketts farewell. She spied Mr. Lindell seated on the Catfield carriage and waved to him. Still agile, after all these years, he jumped down and strode toward her. "Welcome back, Miss Catfield." He took her luggage. "I'm glad to be back." Soon they were on their way to Catfield House, passing Oxford's limestone college buildings with their manicured courtyard. The coach stopped to allow a group of young college men, their scholarly robes billowing behind them, to cross the street. She remembered the times when she was young, and Papa would walk with her there, telling her about each building and its history. She had wanted to go to college and be educated like her father, a physician who took care of patients and lectured at the anatomy school in Oxford during the school year. Women were not allowed to attend college, but that did not stop her from wanting to learn. After her father found her 3 years ago, sitting in on one of his lectures dressed as a boy, he had sent her off to the boarding school in Paris. She had not seen him since then. The carriage rambled past a great oak tree whose branches stretched toward her. The last rays of sun filtered through its green leaves, while small birds flitted back and forth in its fold. Helena felt as if she had never left and was taking a ride around town. The coach turned onto the familiar tree-lined path that led to Catfield House. At the end of the row of trees stood the large brick mansion, surrounded by green bushes and luscious landscaping. Helena's heart swelled with pride. She wondered what Papa would say when he saw her dressed in the elegant Parisian dress with matching hat. Although her appearance differed from the gangly girl who climbed trees and dressed up as a lad to attend his anatomy lectures, she was still the same inside. Nana met her at the door. A gray bonnet covered her head, while gray, frizzy strands waved about her small, wrinkled face. She had been Papa's nanny and later Helena's. She was like a mother to her. Helena hugged her small frame warmly. "Hello, Nana. I'm so glad to see you." "Miss Helena, welcome back. Let me have a good look at you." Nana leaned back and stared at her with unshed tears. My, you've grown into an attractive young woman," she said, with a high-pitched voice. Helena gazed fondly at her nanny. "I may look different, but I haven't changed, Nana," she said. "I miss being at Catfield House and reading my books, dressing casually and riding my horse Straddle." "You've always had that stubborn streak in you, wanting to do things your way," Nana said, shaking her head. "Pride goeth before a fall, and all those years at the boarding school doesn't seem to have done a bit of good for your pride." Nana asked her about the trip, and Helena filled her in. Mrs. Barton, the cook, came to the door. She was a large, imposing woman and towered over Nana. "Welcome home, Miss Helena," she said, smiling, and then turned and scowled at Nana. "Where's your mind gone to, leaving the poor girl standing so long outside the house?" "Oh dear, where are my manners?" Nana said, appearing flustered. "Come in, Miss Helena, and tell us all about your adventures." The house staff had assembled in a line to greet Helena as she entered the front hall. They had been patients of Papa's at one time or another. Mr. Barton, the butler, had a limp and walked with a cane, while his wife, Mrs. Barton, complained of palpitations and a weak heart. John, the footman, stooped from the arthritis in his back, and Mrs. Ratcliffe, the housekeeper, had a skin condition where she would break out in rashes. They had helped Helena through scrapes and falls when she was a child. They had watched her ride her horses and host her father's teas. She often nursed them when the need arose while Papa was away, administering ointments, herbs, or advice. They rewarded Helena with warm smiles. She asked them about their health, and after learning their news, looked around expectantly. "Is Papa here?" "No, dear, I'm afraid he's not. He's still in Greece," Nana said, her voice wavering. "Oh," Helena said. That familiar sinking feeling formed in her stomach. Papa would not be here for her birthday tomorrow. She held her breath for a moment, just enough time for her tears not to well up in her eyes. She had learned that trick in Paris. Never reveal your emotion. She had forgotten Papa's absent-mindedness. She had forgotten that she had spent many birthdays without him. "Miss Catfield, would you like a bite to eat?" Mrs. Barton asked. "I know how well you cook, Mrs. Barton, but all I want to do is rest," Helena replied. "Has Papa written to me?" Mrs. Ratcliffe nudged Nana, her head jerking toward the library. "Oh, yes, where is my mind these days?" Nana exclaimed, hurrying away. "He sent you a letter. It's in the library." Moments later, Helena followed Nana up the stairs, holding her father's sealed letter in her hand. Nana chatted about the news, including the birth, the marriages, and the latest scandals in Oxford. They stopped in front of her room, and Helena's thoughts drifted to the letter in her hand. She wondered what news her father had for her. "Oh, but here I am, such a chatterbox, and you, poor dear, must want to read your father's letter," Nana said knowingly. "We'll catch up on our news later." "Thank you, Nana. I'm glad to be back." Helena smiled at Nana's retreating figure. The familiar scent of rose water greeted her as she entered her room. Helena glanced around, feeling joyful. Everything was as she had left it. She touched her favorite rose-colored bedspread that covered the cherry four-post bed. Nearby was the cherry table and the well-worn upholstered chair where she spent many a time reading in the evenings. The same cream-colored carpet sat in the center of the room, while the fireplace faced the bed. The heavy drapes, wide open, allowed the sun's rays to coat the chamber with a golden hue. Helena stepped to the window and gazed at the beautiful garden with its rows of manicured roses. That familiar cozy feeling enveloped her as she pulled off her hat and sat on the bed. Then she remembered Papa's letter. With a single-minded purpose, Helena ripped open the seal and read, June 15, 1837. "My dearest Helena, I hope my letter will have arrived on or near your 19th birthday. How time flies. I still remember when you were a child playing with your toys. I wish that I had been there to celebrate it with you. 3 months ago, when I came to the village of Petri, near Nemea, my intention was to nurse your ailing grandfather Nico back to health, and then return home. Right before he died, he asked that I continue his efforts to rebuild his home. He had been digging the east side of the foundation. I agreed and felt that your mother would want this also. Therefore, I hired 20 workers to help me dig the foundation. Progress is slow because of all the rocks and the heat. Apparently, your grandfather had also begun digging part of that west section and had covered the hole. He was too ill to remember to tell me about it. After discovering it, I had a few workers help clean the area. Just as importantly, a few days ago, after all the workers left for the day, I stumbled on a discovery of immense value in the west corner. After making my discovery, I took a few treasures and gave one, gold cup, to the archaeological authorities in Athens, though I have not given them all the details. I plan to return for more but could trust no one here to help me. I wonder whether I have stumbled on an important site, like a tomb or a palace, that may be linked to Homer's Iliad, where kingdoms like Agamemnon's and Didymus's did exist, and wealthy vessels and jewels were housed in palaces and royal tombs. But I need not ramble on. Time will tell. I have signed the necessary papers to convert the property to my name. I also want you to come here and help me. If all goes well, we will become exceedingly rich. However, as I write to you, dark forces have already stolen the precious treasures that I had stored in the cottage 2 days ago. They stole them while I slept during the night. I'm having difficulty retrieving them. My inquiries have produced no results. Either they don't know about them or have decided not to tell me the truth. As a result, I've had to let go of my workers because I do not trust them. I understand that antiquities shops in Athens send their scouts around the region, renting land just to excavate and procure items. No rules are in place for such crimes. Therefore, chaos reigns. Those stolen pieces may already have left the country. Meanwhile, I have been feeling unusually ill and weak these past 2 days, so I'm writing to you from my simple bed in your grandfather's humble cottage. Please do not reply, since we have no postal service here. You will need to contact Mr. Avery to arrange for travel to Greece. I plan on going to Athens for supplies and will notify you from down there where we can meet. Your loving father, William Catfield. Helena was excited about her father's discovery and sensed that he was flustered and perturbed about the stolen treasures. She reread the letter, feeling elated about the idea of joining him in Greece and excavating for treasures. It had always been her dream to go with Papa on his archaeological digs. As she went to fold the letter, she noticed some thick scribbling at the bottom of it, written in Greek. Helena's fine brows furrowed as she tried to decipher their meaning. Her heartbeat quickened. She sensed that something was not right. She slowly translated it aloud. Dr. Catfield was ill, and I found him with this letter in his hand. He did not have time to send it. I felt it my duty to mail it to you. We buried him today. May his memory be eternal. Helena's heart skipped a beat as the words sunk in. Her eyes grew wide and her lips trembled. She gave out a hoarse, painful cry and sank into the bed, fainting in that darkest moment of her young life. In that black abyss of the Neverland, she dreamed this fateful dream.